Are you ready to embark on a journey of exploration and unlock the magic of your wonder? There is so much more in the universe than we have been shown. It is time to ask those questions, dissolve those barriers, and embrace your extraordinary life. Here is your fellow explorer in the realm of curiosity and discovery, with almost 20 years of inviting people to embrace the greatness of them, Donnielle Carter.
Welcome, everybody. So, today, comparison can feel like motivation, right? Like you're finding the right path. But comparison is actually competition wearing a disguise. It may look pretty, but it's ugly underneath. And most people don't even know that they signed up for that. That's what we're exploring today. Welcome, everybody, to the Exploration of Wonder. I am your host and fellow explorer, Donnielle Carter, nationally board certified health and wellness coach, intuitive empowerment coach, and really, at the end of the day, your biggest fan. And if you have a topic that you would like to explore on the show, something you're curious about, I'd be curious about it too. And if we're curious about it and we want to explore it, other people will too. So please don't hesitate. Reach out to me today at hello@donnielle.com, DONNIELLE.com, and let's explore it, shall we? All right, so today, my friend, we're going to talk about something that might be a little painful, and it's one of those hashtag sorry, not sorry, but we're talking about comparison, all right? And it's this malicious bit of an energy where we think we're helping ourselves, but we're really not, okay? So I want you to ask yourself something honestly. Really, just sit with this and ask as soon as I ask you, right? Has comparing yourself to another ever actually gotten you moving? Has it put that spark into you and made you go, oh, I'm going to do this? Or did it really just make you hesitate, doubt, and kind of stay exactly where you were? Yeah. For most people, most of the time, I mean, there's always those brief inspiration moments, but that's something else entirely. Okay? So, what is comparison really? And sorry for the noise. That is something beyond my control. We'll be gone in a second. So, what is comparison really? Comparison really is, well, comparing your life, your business, your body, anything to another. Find yourself better or lacking. And this is where some of the weird competition comes in. People think that I'm not competing if I look at myself compared to another, and well, I'm less than them, so I'm not competing. But we are. We are, because the true definition of competition is you compare yourself to another and find yourself better or lacking. And most people don't see that lacking part. They think they're being humble, but they're really, really not. They're being competitive. And this is where the comparison comes in, because we've been taught to do this, right? We dress it up as research, as finding your path, looking to see what worked for somebody else so we know what to do. We've all been there. We've all been looking for that inspiration on the outside. And what I'm going to invite you to today is to really look at that, the inspiration on the inside. And that inside also includes inspiration from the universe, from your body, and all the different sources. That's all that's inside as well. Because we think we have to look outside of ourselves to hear the universe, but we don't. Okay? So when we are comparing to find the right path, is the major example of the show, and we dress it up as, like I said, as research and things like that. But let's be honest, what actually happens next? We don't just observe it. We measure. We judge, right? And we judge ourselves as not far along enough, not as talented as them, not as capable. And my personal favorite, because it's the hardest to quantify, is I'm not as magnetic and I'm not as charismatic. I can't draw people in the way they do. Like I said, That one's not as quantifiable, so it's one of the favorite for people, including myself, to judge themselves by. All right. And please know that when it reaches this point, it's not research anymore. That's competition. That you find yourself lacking. We think, oh, I'm just being humble. They're better than me. But the energy underneath is competition. Just because you think you're failing at it doesn't mean it wasn't competition. Okay. Comparison is just competition wearing a nicer outfit. I'm just looking at them. I'm just seeing how they do it. And please don't judge yourself too much for this, because we've been taught find the right path, right? Find the right path. And the second thing we've been told is, and you don't know what the path is. You have to be told it. That's such a big hill to climb, my friends. And it is something that we are just freaking overwhelmed, and it's like stuffed into our universe of, you don't know the path. You have to find the right one, and you need to have somebody else tell you what it is. Lies, I tell you. You can discover your path. And you notice I switched there from the right path to your path. Your path is as unique as you are. And if you don't think you're unique, let's have a conversation, because you are. Okay, all of us are unique. And the path that worked for me won't work for you. And the path that worked for you won't work for me. So it's not about finding the right path. It's about finding our path, or your path, right? Our individual path. Okay? Because if you're constantly looking outside of yourself, like we've been told, to find the right path, to see how to do things, it's not research anymore. Like I said, that's when the competition comes in. Okay. And here's another part that everyone misses. And I've noticed this. I've literally worked with thousands of people over almost nearly 20 years. And by the way, if you ever want to have a personal chat, please do check out my website, Donnielle.com, and let's see what we can unravel and maybe help you discover your path. All right. So here's what I've noticed after all these years is most people, like I said, they think they're being humble when they compare themselves and they come up short, like it's modesty, like it's self-awareness. But like I said, it's not. It's judgment. It's judgment of yourself, and quietly or not so quietly of the other person too. Okay. And so, quick personal story. I used to be in this big group, and we all had these different licenses. And this one woman and I had the same license. So we could do the same classes. That's what that all meant. And I would look at her socials and I'd be like, oh my gosh, she's so successful. And like, I only had like 10 people in this class. I failed. She has like 15 or 20. What am I doing wrong? How is she doing it? And I'd even have a chat with her. I'm like, well, how are you creating your classes? And she would tell me, oh, I'm doing this, this, and this. And inside I'm like, I'm doing that exact same thing. I'm like, well, maybe I need to be different, right? And that's that non-quantifiable, I need to be more magnetic or more charismatic, right? And not that in this case I wasn't trying to be her, but I was trying to create like her, however her path was. And I struggled for a long time with that. And here's what was interesting about this is I eventually went, screw it, I'm going to find what works for me. I reached that point where I'm like, enough. I feel like I'm always behind this way, right? I was always behind because what is she doing? Okay, let me see if I can be doing that because she's obviously so successful. Looking at her socials, pictures of the numbers of people in her classes. And so the interesting side note to this is a couple of years later, I was talking to another friend of mine in the same group, and she sees the back end of everything. And I just casually mentioned this. I'm like, oh yeah, I used to try to create classes just like this person, blah, blah, blah. And she's like, why? I'm like, well, she's so successful, and all this kind of stuff. She's like, no, I see her numbers. Most of those people are free. Like, what? And she's like, you're actually one of the most successful people in that license. I'm like, excuse me? And she's like, yeah, I see your numbers, I see their numbers. I'm like, oh, okay. So I tell you the story to say that what we're comparing ourselves even to isn't necessarily even true. It's an image. And then we compare ourselves to it and think that's the way we're supposed to be doing it. And not always what we're seeing in them isn't always true. And I'm going to come into that later, but little spoiler alert, because we are comparing what we think their final is with our back end, with our behind the scenes, right? So I was looking at what I thought was her final finished shiny project and going, oh, that's what I need to get to. And so I was comparing, look at that. So we're comparing something completely different. We're comparing our setup, our path with the final endpoint, and it was false. Okay. But the point with this also is what was interesting is one of the reasons I finally went, screw it, I need to do my own thing and stop trying to recreate what she's doing, is I realized when I was in that constant comparison mode, constantly watching her universe, I was putting more of my energy into her and her classes than me and my classes. Okay? Listen to this statement. I was putting more of my energy into her and her classes than me and my classes. Because that's one of the real big costly things of comparison is it puts your energy not to use in your universe, but in somebody else's. Okay? And so you can see this with like celebrities. The more popular they become, the more bright and shiny and whatever they kind of become because so many people are putting so much energy into their universe. Okay? And so when we're in comparison mode, we start spending time in somebody else's universe, studying their path, their timeline, the highlight reel, and watching. It's amazing, right? Analyzing. But every minute you spend there is a minute you're not spending on anything, building anything of your own. Okay? And that's huge, my friends, because that's one of the costs. Okay? So here's the loop. You compare because you're looking for the right path. And then comparing makes you feel behind. And then feeling behind, you compare more. And then you're looking for a resource or a shortcut. So you start following more people, learning from more people. And the whole time, your own path, the only path that you can walk, just sits there, untouched, seemingly getting further and further away, while the universe just sits there and goes, let me know when you're ready. Because your path doesn't go away, luckily. But it can be a little dusty or overgrown with weeds. Do we need a weed whacker, out there and clean up the weeds so you can see your path? Okay. But you end up feeling behind all the time. And not because you're actually behind. You end up behind because you spent time watching somebody else instead of building. How many of us have spent hours, days, weeks, months, years watching somebody else instead of building our own thing? And you don't have to be like, but Donnielle, I don't necessarily want to create a business. It doesn't have to be a business. Building your life, right? I have facilitated and coached so many people who aren't trying to create a business, but they're trying to create their life, and they're judging themselves of like, well, I'm not as put together as this person. I don't look like that person. I can't seem to handle it the way they do. It's so interesting the number of times I get somebody doing a first session with me, and they're like, I want to be like so and so. I'm like, excuse me? Well, they just seem to have it together. And so, you ask me what I want out of this, and it's really this. It's really looking at like, I want to be like this person. And I'm like, okay, cool. And then we get into the attributes of it. And that's where we're going to take you next after our commercial break. Because you know me, I always have tips. I don't just leave you with a pile of poo. I go, here's a pile of poo, and this is how you clean it up. Okay. But before we go to break, what I really want to say is like, this is the real cost of comparison. It's not just emotional tax, the envy, doubt, that heavy feeling. It's a time tax. It's opportunity, it's possibility, and it's such a judgment of yourself. And it just gets you further and further and further, seemingly behind, but more lost in a crazy loop. All right, my friends, we're going to go to our commercial break. Please do stick around, but sit with that question that I asked you of what could you actually create if you weren't spending so much time in somebody else's universe? And I haven't actually asked you that yet. Sorry, I said it in my head. But what could you actually create if you weren't spending so much time in somebody else's universe, but you were spending time in your own? All right, my friends, you are watching or listening to The Exploration of Wonder with me, your host and fellow explorer, Donnielle Carter, nationally board certified health and wellness coach, and we'll be right back.
Ever feel like there's more to life than meets the eye? A sense of wonder just beyond your grasp? Are you ready to create a life that inspires you so much that each day you are excited to wake up and live it? Join Donnielle Carter, a nationally board-certified health and wellness coach, weekly as she explores the universe on the exploration of wonder. Explore everything from harnessing the power of your mindset to connecting with your intuition and harnessing the energetic forces around us. With a blend of humor, warmth, directness, and a dash of cheekiness, Donnielle shares easy-to-use, pragmatic, yet magical techniques you can implement immediately to infuse your life with wonder. Join us as we navigate the fascinating landscapes of the seen and unseen, and together create lives filled with joy, purpose, and boundless possibility.
Are you a subject matter expert? Are you here to share your expertise with an audience waiting to hear from you in only the way you can deliver? Are you ready to have your voice amplified across the airwaves? Inspired Choices Network has a global radio platform streaming to millions of people across the world. Professionally produced and supported by an accomplished team every step of the way, you can broadcast from anywhere in the world, knowing your voice matters, and we ensure it is delivered with ease and efficiency. Eager to hear your message, the world awaits. Contact us today to become an Inspired Choices Network radio host. Email becomeahost@inspiredchoicesnetwork.com.
How wonderful would it be to carry your favorite Inspired Choices Network host with you throughout your day? Well, now you can. Inspired Choices Network now has its very own mobile app. Our free app offers live streaming shows, along with thousands of podcasts and TV episodes. Our shows cover a wide variety of topics. Whether you're waking up with us, carrying us through the day, and taking us to bed with you, we're always here for you to enjoy. We're easy to find. Just search for Inspired Choices Network in the Apple App Store or Google Play Store.
This is The Exploration of Wonder with your guide, Donnielle. To participate in this program, join the live studio audience in our chat room at inspiredchoicesnetwork.com. You can also send an email to hello@donnielle.com. Now back to the exploration.
Welcome back, everybody, to The Exploration of Wonder. I'm your host and fellow explorer, Donnielle Carter. I get giggly at the hello. It's like hello@donnielle.com, and which is kind of the energy I put underneath it. Anyways, reach out anytime if you have any questions. All right. So today we're talking about comparison as a distraction. What are you actually distracting yourself from? Oh, your life. No big deal. Little things like that, your life, your creations, your business, your whatever it is you want to create. You just, comparing yourself to distract. Okay. So in the first segment, we were talking about what the actual cost is, what actual comparison does or doesn't do for your universe. And I hinted earlier about stop looking for somebody else's path to follow and start making your own. And this is where we get into that a little bit more, which is exciting. Because, as I said earlier, we've been told look for the right path. And then the caveat, and you don't know the right path. And And that 1-2 punch kind of pisses me off. Now, I used to believe it. Oh, well, yes, you have to find the right path, because there's one path. And then, by the way, darling, you don't actually know that path, so you must look outside of yourself, see how somebody else did it, and then do it like they did it. I have no idea why I went British, but there you go. So, but here's the thing. You need to start creating your own path. And it doesn't mean you have to be like the adventurer out there and like, climb a mountain unless you want to. But just create your life, because your life is not going to look like anybody else's. I was hanging out with two of my besties last night, and one of them had other friends in, and they were asking like how you guys all became friends and stuff. And we said, well, one of the things we've always enjoyed is how different we've all been. And I've known these ladies since I was 14. And I'm not going to tell you how many years that means we've been friends, because it would tell you my age. And not that I'm ashamed, because most people think I'm younger, so I have no problem with that. But it's been decades, okay? But we've always enjoyed how individual we've been. Our personalities are very different. Our paths in life have been very different, but it's been fun. Okay, so that's what I'm saying, is like create your own path, whatever that looks like. Because every single thing that has been discovered, built, or created started the same way. Ready for this? They started with a question. Someone willing to step into the unknown without a map. Not someone who found the right path, someone who was willing to be uncomfortable long enough to make a path. And that, my friends, is one of those key words, uncomfortable. Most of us are trying to find the right path so we can have the comfort of the path. But finding your own path is rarely, if ever, comfortable. Can you have comfortable moments? Sure. But nothing great was ever discovered by doing what somebody else did. It was willing to be uncomfortable enough to discover something new. And you know what? Your path is new. Your path is new. Your path is uniquely yours, and only you can discover it, because only in your universe does your path exist. So you can have the comfortable discomfort of trying to follow somebody else, or you can just have the discomfort of finding your own. And in that discomfort, you find amazing miracle things, and then you can actually get familiar with that uncomfortable, so it feels comfortable. And I've done shows on that, so please check it out. But let's get into this. I have my tips of how to start discovering your own path, so you stop comparing, stop spending your time in somebody else's universe, and actually create your own. Okay? So, number 1. Catch the moment research turns into measuring. Because absolutely, it can be beneficial to be like, oh, how did they do it? Okay. Oh, and how did they do it? Okay. But there's a moment, and you know that moment. You know that moment when you're going, that curious turns into obsession, turns into trying to mimic, trying to duplicate, trying to be them, right? So there's a second that learning becomes, why am I not them? And I'm so far behind them, I could never catch up. That's the pivot point, that moment. Catch that. So I'm not saying you can never look and see how somebody else did it, but you do know that moment when it's like, oh, curious, that would be fun to, oh, but I don't know if I could do that. I have a picture of a path on my wall. That's why I'm staring at the path. I could never do it like they do it, or, oh my gosh, I'm so far behind, and how did they do it? I have to do exactly the same way. There is that moment when research turns into judgment. Catch it. That's the first step, is just catch it and be like, oh, woo, okay, moving on. No judgment, no self-flagellation, just awareness of, ooh, okay, okay, that's where I start becoming obsessive. Okay, I gotta look at something else. Maybe I should look at my own life. All right, number 2, and this to me is one of the most important ones. So if you hear nothing else of the tips, please listen to this one. Okay? Ask yourself, what would you do if their path didn't exist? Listen to that one for a moment. We look at somebody else's path and went, I should do that for business, for creation, for life, whatever. We look at it and go, I should do that. Okay, well, if you stopped that research and it turned into the obsession, turned into the measuring judgment, this is what you do next. Ask yourself, what would I create? How would I do it if their path didn't exist? Okay, if you couldn't see anybody else's timelines, their wins, their pace, whatever, what would you actually try to do? And how would you try to do it? Think about that. The answer is closer to your real path than anything you get comparing yourself. Because in that comparison, we can't see our own path, right? And as I've kept saying, our own path is so unique. And so we're going to do it different. Like, I'm launching a new program here in this week, I think. I'm so excited. It's coaching women specifically on a GLP-1. And I was gonna launch it last week, but I was trying to launch it like everybody else, and like I had been doing, ironically, for about 19 years. And then I was having a chat with a friend of mine, and she's like, "What do you actually want this to look like?" And so I told her, and she's like, "Then do it that way." I went, "What? I can do it differently?" And she's like, please. And you know what? The energy around it changed. It feels more expansive. And what's interesting is actually has more of a feel of longevity now than it did before. And so when I looked at myself, I went, wait a minute, if I just keep all I learn and throw it up, what would I want this to look like? What would I do if all these other paths didn't exist? How would I launch this? And it felt so much better. Sure, it's a little scary every time we do launch something. It's kind of scary, but it's so exciting. It feels so expansive and nurturing, and it feels alive again. And that's because my dear friend of mine asked, well, what do you want it to look like? And I'm like, this. Okay, then do it. I'm like, what? And I created a new path. Okay, so if you hear nothing else, hear that one. Ask yourself, what would you do if their path didn't exist? What would you do? Because that's your truth, that's your knowing, that's your path leaking into your awareness. Okay. Couple of other things. Set a no scrolling their story boundary when you're building. So when you're working, if on your life, you're having a hobby, you're doing a job, you're playing with your kids, you're creating some business, when you're in building mode, don't scroll to them, because then it shifts all of that building energy to them instead of you. So set a no scrolling their story boundary while they're building. It's not just, oh, I'm just spending 5 minutes. No, you're evaporating and scattering your energy that you are using for building your life. Okay? And then the last one, or two real quickly. One, reframe envy as information. If you're suddenly jealous and envious and like, oh, I want what they want or what they have, well, it's information. Instead of judging it for feeling it, ask what's underneath. Get curious, right? Explore it. Oh, what's underneath this? Why am I envious? Why am I jealous? What do I actually desire of theirs that I think that they have? And then the last one, get comfortable being uncomfortable. You can do it. I have lots of shows on it. But when you get comfortable being uncomfortable, everything can change. All right, my friends, thank you for watching and exploring with me today. This is Donnielle Carter on the Exploration of Wonder. And have a fun week, a magic week, an exploration week. Be back next week, because guess what? I will be too. All right, my friends, have a great one. Keep exploring. Bye.
Thank you for exploring with us today. Donnielle returns Monday at 4 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Central, 2 p.m. Mountain, 1 p.m. Pacific. Until then, be curious, be wonder, and explore the magical universe around you.